welcome along to Tournament Centre. I'm your host, Rich Hagan. Special guest alongside me, Mr. Brian Kibler. VC 29. You're 29? You're so good looking for 29. Grand Prix Toronto champ when you were about 12. Pro to Austin when you were about, I guess, 28. Level 7 this year. Aspirations for more. We're going to do 6 picks with Brian from the draft viewer. 6 moments in the draft that help shape it. And we're going to start with pick 1 of the draft. So Brian, take it away. What do you see in this first pack?
Well, there really are only 2 cards I thought about seriously in this pack. There's Kazadu Tuskcaller and Vendetta. Kazadu Tuskcaller I think is the more powerful card. It has the ability to just take over a game if it is unanswered. Blue-white Leffler decks really, they can't guard duty, they can't really narcolepsy it because you can just start making guys during your upkeep. Vendetta is a more flexible pick, but Vendetta it goes into basically any deck. You can play green splashing Vendetta, you can end up splashing Vendetta just off of Revolving Wilds, you can just be a base black deck. But I knew that Ben Rubin, who is sitting to my right, tends to have a preference for black. And I decided to go with the Kazadu Tuskcaller because I felt it was more likely I'd get green cards.
All right, so we have our 3-3 there. Now, the next couple of picks were both green. Jade Life Strider, Awakening Zone. So then we come to pack number 4, and what intrigues me here, it's pretty clear straight away, there aren't a ton of good cards here. There is a Wild Heart Invoker in green. It does a lot of good stuff late in the game. It's a perfectly serviceable monster at any other time. What interests me about this pick, Brian, is that you took this within like 2 seconds flat. And I'm wondering whether there was a kind of almost a mental game within a game going on there, because you'd been quite methodical in the first 3 picks, and then suddenly it's like bam. And does the player on your right see this? He knows what good cards are left in there. Answer, not very many. If he sees a card go slam, is he thinking, yeah, he's taken the Wild Heart Invoker? Were you thinking like that or no?
I wouldn't put Ben on being nearly that observant to see that I picked it quickly, and I certainly wasn't nearly clever enough to be thinking that he would notice that. So it was a very clear pick for me, so I took it quickly.
All right, a ton more green cards go by. Let's take you into pack 2, pick 1, and what was interesting here is in the draft viewer, you can see all 15 cards at once, but in real life, well, we're a bit more one at a time than that. And as you were going through, you were the look on your face was like, yeah, that's not very exciting, and neither's this. And eventually you see this Leaf Arrow and thinking, am I going to have to take a Leaf Arrow as a first pick? That's just wrong, by the way. So eventually, the very last card in the pack, big relief, there's Stagger Shock.
I mean, this pack is just terrible. There's really very little that I'd want to play in almost any deck in here. I mean, the Pot of Ulamog's good, the Deprive is good, the Explosive Revelation is pretty good. Stagger Shock was a solid pick. I already had 2 Flamewave Invokers that I picked to go with my Awakening Zone, trying to go on the token plan.
Yeah, the Lava Fume, yeah. So eventually we get there to go with the red. There's some nice green cards come along, Palaka Worm. Let's now go into pack 3. So again, we've got the full suite. And what was interesting here is, again, not a desperately exciting pack. Overgrown Battlement, a lovely card, the 0/4 Defender. Earlier in the second pack, you'd got a couple of Battle Ramparts. Now, they're kind of marginal cards. Sometimes they can be great. If you've got like Triple Vent Sentinel, they can be really good, but other times not so much. So what I want to know is, we can see up here, you've chosen Overgrown Battlement. How does that impact how you think about the Battle Ramparts you've already got?
Well, interestingly, when I took the Battle Ramparts, I was thinking ahead to the possibility of Overgrown Battlements.
Right.
The red-green ramp deck, it's actually at its best when you have battlements, ramparts, so you can play your gigantic monster, come in with it immediately. A Crusher, for instance, is way more exciting when it hits your opponent right away before they can cast it like Narcolepsy or Guard Duty. Yep. So the rampart definitely makes the battlements better, and the battlements make the rampart better.
All right, so there's a nice synergy there. Let's go on a couple of picks, and next time we've now got a real choice, and this is one of the toughest choices in the draft. And the 2 cards, they're on top of each other. Rapacious One, the 6 casting cost, 5/4 Trampler, makes tokens, or the big bad 8/8 for 8, Ulamog's Crusher. Which do you pick and why?
I mean, this was a pick that I took the entire duration on. I was actually sitting there holding the cards in my hand when they called draft, and he was still debating. Ulamog's Crusher is just one of the most powerful creatures in the format. One of the most powerful common creatures. It can just absolutely take over a game. The Annihilator is huge. It's just a gigantic creature. And at that point, I was somewhat lacking on just finishers. I mean, I had a Palaka Worm, I had a Gigantomancer, so I was sort of debating, well, do I really want a Crusher? Is a Rapacious One better? Ultimately, I went with the Ulamog's Crusher. I'm not sure what was actually right. I think Rapacious One might have been better because my deck was somewhat mean, I didn't really have much in the 5 and 6 slots that could be really aggressive. A Rapacious One's another card that's really great to ramp out to and send in with haste with the Battle Rampart.
Yep.
You get a ton of tokens, and you can fire out the rest of your fat creatures.
Absolutely. Final of the 6 picks that we're going to highlight. Here it comes. Now, the pick is between Naturalize, which is the second one, by the way, or this Aura Gnarlid. Now, my question is, and I just don't know the answer to this, how scared are you of the Aura Gnarlid going into a deck that potentially is the blue-green totem deck? He's already got 2 of these. You give them a third, pick 9 or 10 further downstream, rather than a second Naturalize that maybe you're not going to play. What was the thinking?
Well, I mean, it's definitely much less scary to play against an Aura deck when you have 2 Naturalize.
Of course.
But, I mean, that actually was something that went into my head, was,
Sure.
if I'm passing Aura Gnarlid rather than defensive drafting it, I will have 2 Naturalize. Another thing is that Naturalize is just a good card in the green decks against some of the best cards against your fat creatures. There's Narcolepsy, there's Guard Duty, and Naturalize is really important to have in your sideboard against those cards. One of the important things that a lot of people don't pay attention to in Limited is drafting for your sideboard. They draft a bunch of cards for their main deck and don't really think too much about their sideboard. A lot of people, I think, would just take the Aura Gnarlid. It's a good card. You may even think you're playing it at that point. It's just a reasonable attacker. 3-drop, whatever. But I think Naturalize, it solves more of the problems that the green deck has, at least the big green deck. At that point in the draft, I think the Naturalize is the right choice.
Yeah, and as all pros will tell you, there is always a way to sideboard in Limited. Always, always, always. Go to your board, find the card that is just going to be better than the 23rd best card in your main deck, and it's an edge, and it wins games. So, 6 picks there with Brian Kibler. There's another 36 to look at on the draft viewer, plus the other 7. So you can see what everyone did. Where did that Aura Gnarlid end up? What about the Rapacious One? You can see it all on the draft viewer. But until we meet again, for Brian Kibler, I'm your host, Rich Hagan, saying bye.